Are you curious about the publication process? Do you want to know how to roll out multiple local sites and support various languages simultaneously? Let's look at how a rollout plan is in Magnolia. We make the complex easy by automating rollout tasks so you can release them effectively and with confidence.
Let's have a look on advanced content editing processes. Let's go. This time, I'm going to log in with a slightly more powerful account. So for that, I'm going to log in with the Power Editor. All right, as you can already see, based on the advanced rights that I have, there are a lot more apps available. More about that in a later session. For now, let's just simply go back to the Pages app. And as you recall, we basically changed quite a bit of content. We just created this new section and just somehow changed the text. So what do I have to do to actually publish that content? For that, I'm going to select here that page that I actually changed. And now on the right hand side with our action bar, we can basically use the publish action. So what's happening now is that I'm going to trigger a workflow for publication. So created new skiing section and so on. Basically what I do here is I just give the reviewer information about what was changed, why it should be published. The next thing that we have here, that's basically the publication field. The publication date. What I can do here is I can just specify, even if I have the go for the publication, that the system can then automatically publish the content at a later stage for me. So I don't have to go to the office on Sunday 12 o'clock to get the content live. For now, just to keep it simple, we just go for immediate publication once approval is here. Okay, for that, I'm going to hit publish. What happened now is that the publication request is now in the publication queue. As I mentioned, in this time I logged in as a Power Editor. That means I have accelerated privileges, so I can in this case even approve my own requests. As said, that is typically only available for very advanced editors. Normally you really go to this handover stage where someone else is going to look at your content changes. So what we have here are all the different tasks available that should be basically taken by someone. So this is the task that we just created for approval. I'm going to assign this task for me. And now I can basically approve and publish that changed content. I could reject it because something was wrong. Obviously, that's only making sense if I'm going to approve the content from someone else, because in this case, I'm pretty sure that is good what I did, right? Preview page, this will basically just show us a page, how it will look like. We've seen it already, so we're going to skip this step. And therefore, I'm simply going to approve and publish. And with that, our very basic 4i workflow just ends. So the workflow is approved. And when I go now back to our page, we see already that the status here changed. Green means there are no pending changes, the page is live. If we are in an orange status, that means the page was already published, but there are some pending changes. Whereas if it's just red, that means this page currently is not live at all. Okay. So we have now actually published a page, but let's say we are dealing with multiple sites at the same time and we want to reuse a good portion of our content in those different sites. So how can we do that? Do we have to copy and paste everything like we've seen before with copy from clipboard or just replicate those pages? Well, obviously that is not going to scale at all. And for that, we have some very clever mechanisms to allow you to create central content and then basically roll it out to different, let's say, country sites. So if you look here at the page structure, then we have here our global content, and we have some specific sites for different countries. For example, if we look here on the German side, then we see that the content is looking kind of the same. But if we look here on the languages, we have only 2 languages available. Okay, so we just see, or what we have seen by now is that we can have multiple country sites. That's fine. But how can I now basically replicate that content? The magic is basically in the components by themselves. Because if we just now look on the different components here, we see that here's a new symbol. So here's that log symbol. And what that tells us is basically that this is live copy content. This content can be overwritten at any time. And if I want to change this behavior, so I want to basically own this content, so I can just change it for my specific market. All I have to do in the editing process is just hit the edit symbol, and then I can just on those log symbols decide what kind of content can be overwritten and what is just basically managed by me. And obviously I can go way beyond that. So I can just disable single components by disabling updates from master content, or I can just take even complete sections and then just disable the updates for the full section altogether. Okay, so what we have learned by now is I can actually lock certain components from being overwritten from the main content. However, how can I actually trigger such a rollout process? Well, for that, I just go here to the main content, and what I can do then is I can actually push my master changes. And that gives me a nice dialog that shows me all the potential targets or country sites that could receive such an update. In this case, we want to roll out to the German page, and then I can just push the content, and with that, my update is basically replicated to this country page. Okay, if I'm going to have a lot of different country pages, I need a lot of languages, right? And what we have seen already is that I can basically switch between the different languages and do those translations on my own manually, as said. That is obviously not scaling very well because, for example, I'm not able to read or write Chinese. For that, we can use a very powerful automation process behind it. So what you can do is you can create so-called translation packages. What a translation package is, that's really just some kind of a work order. You're just going to select multiple pieces of content that you're going to group together, and then you can just send this content to a translation agency, for example, or to some kind of automated service like DeepL. As you can see, this action is not available. Why is that? Well, typically translation work is combined with a certain cost tag, and therefore you can just lock down the availability of this action to specific accounts that have the privilege to approve those actions. Therefore, I'm going to quickly change again my role, and I'm going to go in now with some kind of super user that has all the privileges. I go to the page, and what I can do now is I can just say, okay, I want to add, let's say, this page here to a translation batch. So that was a skiing campaign. The source language, that's basically the language or the core language where every content is written in. The next section, you have then the different languages that can be used. So let's say I want to have for this one a French translation, an Italian translation, a German translation, and maybe also the Spanish translation here. This here is typically pre-configured per site. So in this case, we will just send it to an auto-translation service like DeepL. If you send it to an agency, then those two things are also very interesting. Because if you somehow short on time, then you can just indicate a very close due date. Well, actually that just means some extra work on the translation agency, and therefore that is maybe associated with a higher cost. And on the notes, you can then also give some hints on tone of voice and all those things. Okay, so save changes. What I did now is I just created this initial batch with one page. And what you can do, obviously, is you can just then select a lot more pages, add this to this batch, and then approve it to send it over to the translation process. And for that, we have here the translation app. That's a skiing campaign that I just created with all the different languages that should be created for this translation request. Next stop, we are simply going to submit this work order. In this case, to dbel submit batch. And now that request is basically sent over to the translation service. Typically, within 5 minutes, I should get back my different translations that can be then imported into the system. For that, we then just get a new task for the approval. I already created a few translation requests some time ago, and therefore the translations are already ready for import. So let's have a look on basically how that process looks like. So if I'm going to take this task here, I'm going to assign it to me. And if I'm going to preview this task, then we see here that this is basically the translation for Chinese. So I want to review what we got. So this here is my original content. This here is a translated value. If I'm good with that, I can simply import the content and I'm good to go. And with that, we basically conclude our session on advanced content processes. See you in the next one.